In December of 1997, a baby went missing from her crib during a house fire. Initially, firefighters believed that the fire had been so hot, any remains of the baby had been destroyed. Her mother, on the other hand, didn't buy it. She thought her child had been kidnapped. Years later, a twist of events would occur, uncovering a series of lies, secrets, and an evil figure lurking in the shadows. So stick around until the end of today's show to learn about the shocking disappearance of Delimar Vera and the insane twists that would come years later. Welcome to the Truly Terrifying Show. If you like stories about crime, killers, and mystery, then this is the spot for you. We upload 1 to 2 times per week on YouTube and all podcast directories. We also post some additional content on TikTok and Instagram, so if that interests you, go check it out. On today's episode of the show, we're going to be covering the incredible case of Delimar Vera. Make sure to stick around to the end because there's one and maybe even 2 shocking twists that'll leave you speechless. If you like today's episode, please give it a like and subscribe. It seriously helps and motivates me so much. So thank you guys for watching, and let's get straight into the case of Delimar Vera. In December of 1997, the Vera family was getting ready to celebrate Christmas in snowy Philadelphia. The excitement in the home was almost palpable, not only because of the holidays, but also because the mother of the house, Luce, had recently brought home her newborn baby named Delimar. This was Luce's 3rd child, but it was her first baby girl with her husband Pedro, and the family was over the moon excited to have her home. She was only 10 days old and was getting so much attention from her siblings and parents. The family absolutely adored her cute little smile. It was getting late, and the family was heading to bed when they heard a loud and sudden explosion come from upstairs. Luce ran from downstairs all the way upstairs to see the fire. It was located in the front room, which was where the newborn baby was sleeping. Even though the room was engulfed in flames, Luce ran straight in there, determined to save Delimar. When she got inside, she went straight to the crib, which was empty. She looked around, but there was no sign of the baby, and the flames were burning every inch of her body. She was forced to leave, and she ran outside, hoping that one of her family members would have the child. Nobody had seen Delimar anywhere, so Luce was convinced she had been kidnapped. But once the fire stopped burning, and she told the firefighters this, they told her that the fire had burned so hot there wouldn't be a single remnant left of a child, especially considering it was a newborn baby. The firefighters would continue to search the house and would find 2 interesting things. First, they identified that the fire had been started in the baby's room by a faulty extension cord. This would further prove the theory that the baby had been tragically killed by the fire. To further prove this theory, the firefighters found remains which they believed to be Delimar's. Even though everything was pointing towards their theory being true, Luce was adamant that her baby had not been burned. She said, "I literally ran into the room right after the fire started and the crib was still intact." But there was just nothing her nor the firefighters could do to prove she was right. A couple days later, the result from the remains came back. As it turns out, they weren't Delimar's. Instead, they were actually just a charred portion of a mattress. The medical examiner's office never officially issued a death certificate for the girl, and therefore there was no funeral. But nobody knew where she could have gone, so the case was closed, and the family was forced to move on. Unsurprisingly, Luce did not. She was adamant that someone would have started that fire deliberately and then taken her child. Unfortunately, nobody believed her, not even her husband Pedro. Pedro had no reason to not believe the firefighters, and therefore he thought she was just experiencing extreme denial. The two of them would have these big fights over the issue, and it was drawing a line between them. The stress of what had happened was just too much to bear for their relationship, and ultimately they would decide to get a divorce. Luz felt as if a big part of her had been destroyed, but she put on a brave face and continued to raise her other two children the best that she possibly could. After a while, things kind of returned to normal. She started going on long walks and attending family events, but everything was about to change. Luz was invited to a family birthday party. So many of them ended up going that it was more of a family reunion than a birthday party. She felt relieved being surrounded by family, and she felt even more relieved that none of them were bringing up the death of her daughter, or the supposed death of her daughter. Luz was making her rounds, catching up with all of her distant family members, and that's when she ran into her cousin, Carolyn. The last time either of them had seen each other was the day before her daughter had gone missing. Initially, Luz was worried Carolyn might bring up the fire, but it never came up and they hit it off. While the two of them are talking, a young girl runs up to Carolyn's side and mumbles something. Carolyn introduces the girl to Luz, telling her that the girl is her daughter and her name is Aaliyah. Luz is surprised by this. She knew that Carolyn was trying to get pregnant, but she also knew that she had been having a ton of trouble and had experienced 2 miscarriages in the past. Luz stares blankly at the girl, noticing her beautiful smile. "Can you guys just excuse me for a moment?" she says, and when they say yes, they walk away, and she just stands there staring blankly. What ended up happening next would uncover an appalling family secret and send shockwaves through the media. The following is a recreation of the true cause of Delimar's disappearance. 6 years prior, the Vera family hosted a Christmas party. This was the day before Delimar went missing. In attendance was Carolyn Carrera. Carolyn was a quiet, kind woman who was working really hard to get her life back on track. Though most of the family didn't know much about her personal life, everybody knew that she had just been released from prison on charges of arson. Carolyn had been working at a pharmacy, and it's rumored that she had been embezzling and stealing money. To cover up her tracks, she decided to burn down the entire building so that all of the evidence would be gone. Unsurprisingly, she got caught. The family knew that Carolyn was having a rough time, and that's why they invited her to the party in the first place. The day following the party, Carolyn returned to the household saying that she had forgotten her purse. Pedro let her in, and Luz didn't even know she was there. It's likely Pedro was busy at the time and had to run and do something, because Carolyn was then able to sneak upstairs, grab the baby, and then light the room on fire. On the day of the birthday party, for some reason, Aaliyah's smile and overall demeanor brought back vivid memories to Luz. She felt as if somehow this girl could be her daughter. She stood there, head spinning, wondering, is there any possible way this could be her? At that point, she said to herself, "I'm not going to say anything unless I'm 100% certain that she's my daughter." And she had to figure it out as quietly as possible. Luz secretly watched the duo from the side of the party, waiting for the perfect moment. And when Carolyn went to the bathroom, she approached. She told Aaliyah that one of the kids had somehow gotten gum stuck in her hair and that she needed to help her cut it out. They went to the kitchen, grabbed a pair of scissors, and she cut out a snippet of her hair, putting it quickly into her pocket. Luz left the party almost immediately, and she rushed straight to the police station. When she got there, she instantly told them the story, gave them a sample, and they sent it off to be compared to Luz's hair. Not wanting to take any chances, the police went, picked up Aaliyah, and put her in protective custody. When the results came back, it was made official that Aaliyah was, in fact, Delimar. As soon as the results were in, the police rushed back to Carolyn's house to arrest her for charges including arson and kidnapping. When they got there, they realized that Carolyn had fled, leaving her other 2 children stranded. A couple days later, she would turn herself in, and Delimar was returned to her true mother. At the trial, the case only got messier. Carolyn persuaded the courts to conduct further testing on the child, and what they found was crazy. First, they found that Carolyn did in fact give birth to a baby only a few days before Luce, but once again the DNA didn't match. Nobody knows what happened to that child, and it's speculated that she either abandoned it or it didn't survive past birth and she didn't tell anybody. Next, Carolyn straight up accused Delimar's true father, Pedro, of helping her with the crime. She claimed that the two were participating in an affair and he had helped her steal the child. This would explain why she was able to get into the house so easily. But Pedro denied all accusations and charges were never laid on his behalf. Ultimately, Carolyn was given a sentence of 5 to 30 years and will likely spend the majority of her life in prison. Although it's unlikely we will ever know the full story, at least Luce and Delimar were reunited, and Carolyn will face the consequences of her actions. Thank you guys for watching this episode of the show. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. It really helps me. Thanks again for watching, guys. We'll see you next week.